Checkity, check, check. Okay, so episode 2. My name is Kevin. I am a poet and I write poetry. So this next poem is titled Zombie Love Stew. I'll just get right into it. I'll give a little background, I guess. Maybe I'll give the background after. Let's just get right into the poem, background after, and then breakdown. Poem background, poem breakdown. Sounds good? Let's do it. Okay, the recipe called for radiance, so I asked the moon to borrow stars. Cabernet from gravel beds on Betelgeuse wineries where my sorrows are. I meant to make mention of matrimony. Instead, I asked if your tomorrows are spoken for. I could open doors. My ambitions are Kilimanjaro far. I sifted stars under coral reefs, Julienne rainbows arranged florally. Borrowed powdered sugar from Willy Wonka that he said he harvested from Nordic Sea. Yes, I'm alive, but you are more to me. Romeo, tell these Josephs that historically we are anything but average. Origins of a casket, my birth made woman at opera sing. From the locker we saw what the shores could bring. Out of Hades, fair lady gave chorus ring. Love at first sight I imprinted, which incentivized angels to occasion sound and soar of wings. Beauty, if ever you bore of wing, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem. Like geysers, no Pfizer, just zombie love stew, and I'll die here with you, accordingly. So, that poem is titled Zombie Love Stew. I wrote that, I want to say, within the past 2-ish years. It might have been 3. So, the Pfizer reference, clearly, like, that was around the time of COVID, like shortly after, once like the Pfizer and Moderna thing started. So that's what that gives me a time frame reference of around the time that I would have wrote that, because I wouldn't have known the word Pfizer until that started coming up regarding the COVID vaccine. So a little background, this poem, I can't remember what exactly inspired it, but reading through it, I do remember that I'm very like, and by means of personality and temperament, I'm very inspired by Dr. Seuss, and also so like Dr. Seuss is traditionally known for his happy, vibrant, quirky, off kilter, weird children's books. Um, and then I heard once that Dr. Seuss, prior to finding success with his children's books, actually was creating art that was more darker in tone, literally, um, under the name, I think under his actual name, Theodore Geisel. So if you look up like Theodore Geisel artwork, you'll see these pictures and portraits that look almost like a dark version of the Dr. Seuss books. But when I say I'm inspired by means of temperament and personality by Dr. Seuss, like I love Dr. Seuss for his ability to convey simplicity with his poetry. It's actually a very hard thing to do well, to not sound like cheesy and simple, to do simple in like this quirky way that feels refreshing and novel. Um, but I'm not necessarily inspired by Dr. Seuss and his like rhyme schemes and how he puts words together. Um, I'm more so inspired like the mental image of who he probably was as a person to be able to write those kind of quirky poems in children's books, but then also to be able to paint those darker portraits earlier on before he found success as a children's book author. So all of that, what his art was, then giving me a mental picture and a mental insight into what his temperament and personality might have been like, if even just a facet or a glimpse, inspires me. There's certain like persons and types of persons that inspire me. Dr. Seuss is one of them. Within that same category is like the type of the jester, this clown person who would stand before the king and mock, but also joke and jest. Also Mad Hatter, like dark, quirky, weird, off kilter. I'm pretty sure there's more persons I just can't think of right now. Anyway, so this poem, like reading through it, I go, oh yeah, like I don't know if I meant to write it in the vein of a Dr. Seuss inspired poem, or if like as it came out, I was like, oh yeah, this is like in the vein of what I feel like would be my iteration of a Dr. Seuss poem. Sometimes I'll write poems and I like Some of the veins that I want to or like to write in are like Dr. Seuss, Shakespearean, Sherlock Holmes-ish, like Sherlockian. Like I like those three S's. I always like think about those three S's in reference to poetry writing as spirits I want to like animate myself by when I write poems. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes the poem just comes and it has a life of its own. Um, but sometimes I'll try to write in the vein of those spirits of how would I write if I was Dr. Seuss, or if I'm trying to imitate Dr. Seuss, how would I write if I was Shakespeare, or if I was trying to imitate, how would I write from a very Sherlockian, I invented a word that's very Shakespearean. How would I write if I was writing in a Sherlockian vein or spirit? So this poem, I can just tell from how I put it together and how it sounds, it was in a Seussian, let's make it all Seussian, Shakespearean, Sherlockian. This was in a very Seussian vein. Just the way I like played with ideas and even the way I arranged words. So let's just go through the breakdown. So it's called, the title is Zombie Love Stew. I also like I like the, I don't even know if motif is the right word, but like the way the movie Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton is, I guess, another, like when I say Dr. Seuss, Mad Hatter, Tim Burton, which makes sense because Mad Hatter, Helen Bonham Carter was in the Alice in Wonderland movie. Helen Bonham Carter and Tim Burton, I believe, were married or are married. I think. Fact check me. I'm almost positive that's the case. Anyway, I like the motifs and the ideas and the themes and just the thread of quirkiness, silliness, darkness that's in the Nightmare Before Christmas movie, and this idea of like Jack and Sally. Even like the song "I Miss You" by Blink-182, where it says we can live like Jack and Sally. Like I just like that motif of romance painted, rather than being in like this fairy tale, bubbly, tangled Rapunzel, Disney princess vein. I like the idea of taking the idea of romance, like these directors and writers and movie people and book people and literary people who take the idea of romance, which is supposed to be associated with like traditionally associated with light and airy and warm colors, and even Valentine's Day being red thematically, and even the idea of cloud nine, like it's a high, it feels like a high, you're on cloud nine, like we associate the sky and ideas of the sky, planets, stars, moons, space, galaxies with like elation and being lifted and being high in this place and being enthusiastic and in love. It feels like you're floating, it feels like you're flying, whereas opposed to like the depths and Hades and hell and the rock bottom and the abyss is like this place of depression. So I like the idea of taking something that's traditionally supposed to be associated with warm, positive, vibrant, light backdrops and backtones, and putting it against the scale of like dark, eerie, quirky, weird, off kilter. So like in the movie Nightmare Before Christmas, this love interest that Sally has with the main character Jack, or I haven't watched the full movie, but this idea of the Corpse Bride movie that Tim Burton also made, where these dead people are in love with each other, or the woman's in love with the guy. This idea of like the dead, the living dead, having like romance is such a attractive idea to me. So like that's like kind of the heart of this poem. So that's where I believe, if I try to get back into the mindset that I was in when I wrote this, and why I titled it Zombie Love Stew, was because I was trying to write in that vein of dark, off-kilter, quirky love romance story, and then pulling off the ideas of like Jack and Sally and Nightmare Before Christmas and Corpse Bride. So title, Zombie Love Stew, and we'll get to that at the end of the poem. So again, Dr. Seussian vein, Nightmare Before Christmas, Jack and Sally vein, Corpse Bride vein. So starting off, it says the recipe called for radiance. Like it's as if I'm narrating, like I'm an interlocutor, like breaking the fourth wall, speaking to the audience about this moment in the play where this guy is in love with this girl, like this dead zombie skeleton guy, Frankenstein, mummy thing, guy, person, is in love with a other afterlife, Walking Dead, zombie, mummy, vampire, Frankenstein, whatever you want to have, these ideas, these motifs, and these characters that are often associated with like Halloween or dark stories. So it's as if I'm narrating, breaking the fourth wall, speaking to the audience, but also first person, the person that's in love, speaking about this love that I feel and trying to describe it to you as an audience member. So it's like I'm telling, like, it's almost as like you see this person's in love and you're like, hey man, like tell me about this thing that you like, you found a girl. And I'm like yeah, and so instead of being like, yeah, I found a girl and like that, it's like me in my room pontificating to myself about this woman that I'm in love with, and I'm saying like this is the way I describe it poetically. The recipe, like this thing that I feel inside, this composition, this amalgam, this concoction of love potion that's inside of me that's causing butterflies in my stomach. Like if I tried to like describe what it was, and then also I at one point wanted to be a chef. I was taking culinary classes. So I'm like painting it as if it's like a chef. So like Romeo, romance, Jack Skellington, Corpse Bride kind of guy describing love in like a chef way, like as if it's a recipe. If this is a recipe for love, but it's the recipe to describe what I'm feeling for my love. So it's like chef, romantic guy. The recipe called for radiance. Like again, zombie love stew, radiance, zombie, dark, eerie, radiance, bright, heavenly. I ask the moon as if like now we're going into the galaxies and I'm taking you on this journey and I'm speaking about inanimate objects as if they're anthropomorphic, as if they're like human like entities. I ask the moon to borrow stars like asking a neighbor to borrow sugar. Cabernet from gravel beds on Betelgeuse wineries where my sorrows are. So this idea of like vineyards and vines growing like out of gravel beds. And like I borrow stars as like one ingredient because the recipe calls for radiance. Okay, what do I need to make this? What is it that makes this radiant? It's like being drunk on wine. So we need Cabernet, we need stars. And the Cabernet can't just be any Cabernet. It can't be Harris Teeter wine aisle Cabernet. It has to be where Cabernet from gravel beds that came from the gravel bed of Betelgeuse wineries. Betelgeuse is like this mega star in the galaxies. So this wine from gravel beds on Betelgeuse wineries where my sorrows are. This idea of my sorrows being on this external planet, this megastar far, far away in the galaxy. And that idea, trying to like explain it, would be like there's this idea, at least in American culture, where when someone's in love or sad and in love, or maybe they have a forlorn, is it forlorn? Where it's like unreciprocated love? Anyway, when people are sad and in love, they like talk, or they're just in love, they talk to the moon. There's this idea of like the moon being associated with love and romance. You see that in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, that Christmas movie. Like the main character is talking to the love interest and he's asking like, what do you, they're walking down this neighborhood street at night and they see the moon. He goes, what do you want? Do you want the moon? Yeah, that's what I'll give you the moon. I'll throw a lasso around it and pull the moon down for you. So this idea of like when you're sad and in love or just in love, you talk to the moon. And that being the idea behind like, where are my sorrows? Like almost like my sorrows are in this place that's in, because I always pontificate and spill out my heart of this unreciprocated love, or just this love that it's love, but I'm also like, it makes me sad for whatever strange reason. Poet, romantic, hopeless romantic ideas. So my sorrows that I keep depositing into the galaxies end up on this megastar, and imagining wineries on this megastar in these vineyards growing out of gravel beds. The recipe called for radiance. So what did I do? I asked the moon to borrow stars and Cabernet from gravel beds on Betelgeuse wineries where my sorrows are. And then now I go to like, as if I'm speaking to the love interest. So it's like first person speaking to the love interest. I meant to make mention of matrimony. What I meant to say was like, marry me. Instead, I asked if your tomorrows are. I consulted about your future. I inquired about your future. I meant to make mention of matrimony. Instead, I asked if your tomorrows are spoken for. Are you spoken? Do you like, does someone already have your hand in marriage? I meant to make mention of matrimony. Instead, I asked if your tomorrows are spoken for. I could open doors. My ambitions are Kilimanjaro far. This idea of like Aladdin, I could show you a whole new world. When you're in this place of like cloud nine and elation and romance and in love, you feel like you could, like, again, the movie It's a Wonderful Life, he's like, what do you want? I'll give you the moon. I love you so much. I'll give. And there's like this old song, is it After Seven? Where he's, I'll give you the stars, the moons, and this list of like things. are your tomorrow. I asked if your tomorrows are spoken for. I could open doors. My ambitions are Kilimanjaro far. This idea that romance makes you feel like not only do you want to go out and give the world and the galaxies to this person you're in love with, but like to feel like you could, as if um, I sifted, and then it goes back from speaking first person to the love interest back to like the recipe construct. I sifted the stars on the coral reefs, julienne rainbows arranged florally. So again, very Dr. Seussian, like this idea of like you're doing what? You're like metaphorically the stars that I borrowed from the moon. I sifted stars onto what? Onto the coral reefs. Now you're going from like galaxy to depths of ocean, the coral reef. I sifted stars on the coral reefs, then pulled rainbows down, like this idea of chasing rainbows and finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And then julienne rainbows arranged florally, like you slice the rainbows into different colors, the different bands of colors, and then arranged florally, like create this bouquet out of the colors of the. I borrowed powdered sugar from Willy Wonka. He said he harvested from the Nordic Sea. Again, like Seussian, Mad Hatter, Willy Wonka, like quirky. Borrowed powdered sugar from Willy Wonka that he said he harvested from Nordic Sea. Yes, I'm alive, but you are more to me. Like you're more than life. You mean more than life to me. Romeo, tell these Josephs. So this idea of like the spirit of Romeo, the spirit of the romantic, this motif and this archetype, like Romeo's an archetypal romantic man, the willingness to die for love. So it's like now I'm like the only person I could relate to and grabbing a character from literature is Romeo. It's like he's willing to die for his love, right? Like so I'm like Romeo, tell these like like the kind of love I feel for this love interest that I have. Everyone else, every other display and example I've loved pales in comparison. The only thing I could compare this thing that I feel to is someone who I've seen actually die for their love, Romeo and Juliet. I'm like likening myself to Romeo. Romeo, tell these Josephs that historically we are anything but average. Origins of a casket. My birth made woman at opera sing. That line, I looking at it now, I like this idea, this motif of life from death. And one of those motifs of life from death is the phoenix, this mythological bird that in order to be reborn, the phoenix has to like grow old and die and turn to ash, like it combusts into fire. And you see this in the Harry Potter movie when Dumbledore's phoenix dies and Harry's in Dumbledore's office, and then from the ashes, because it busts into fire at the end of its life, ashes remain of its body, and out of the ashes, the new phoenix is reborn. So me saying like, Romeo, tell these Josephs, tell these average Joes, Romeo, we are special, but everyone else, no, all these other examples of love that I've seen pale in comparison to what I feel. It's like what you felt, because I know I feel like I would want to die, be able to die for this person I'm in love with. Romeo, tell these Josephs, tell them, I'm trying to tell them in poetry, but tell these Josephs, these average Joes, that historically we are anything but average. My origins are of a casket. I'm this thing that learns to experience life at new heights by death, by going through death and rebirth constantly, which is a Christian motif, it's a mythological motif, it's a very common literary motif. We are anything but average. My origins are of a casket. And so that's where this next part comes in. My origins are of a casket. Like casket is more associated with ending and end of life, but my origins, your birth, like your origin story is of a casket. Why? My origins are of a casket. My birth made woman at opera sing. This idea is like, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, like this woman in an opera who's like bellowing, and you, like, I guess apparently that's how you knew the opera was coming to an end. My birth made woman at opera, so that's why I'm saying, like, associating this idea of casket, birth, origin. My Romeo, tell these Josephs that historically we are anything but average. My origins are of a casket. My birth made woman at opera sing. And then this next part, from the locker we saw what the shores could bring. When I say locker there, I'm referring to Davy Jones' locker, which we see in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Like Jack is in this place of like purgatory, after like not quite death and gone, but he's like trapped in this middle place. It's like this place of like perpetual torment without being able to actually die. So again, this idea of like living in death, which just ties that thread I'm constantly weaving through this entire poem. So I'm saying, from the locker we saw what the shores could bring. Like we're in this place of not quite dead, but not quite alive. And so in that place, which is what sometimes love can feel like in the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, this like crew of people come back to rescue the main character Jack Sparrow because they need him to accomplish something in the land of the living. So it's almost like the show. What if the locker is this place of like not quite alive, not quite dead, but this in between trap place? What do the shores, the beaches, and the shores in the locker, Davy Jones' locker, represent? This place where things from the land of the living come adrift. So if I imagine myself like this zombie-like figure floating through life like a corpse and dead, and then I run across this love interest, and it makes me feel alive. It's like a corpse in Davy Jones' locker sitting on the beach, kind of just watching the waves go by, feeling uninspired. And then the shores begin to wash up. I'm trying to like convey what might be washing up on the shores. Almost like if you imagine like a letter in a bottle, pull the letter out, you know, there's that motif of putting a love letter in a bottle, throwing it out at sea, washing up on shore. From the locker, we saw what the shores could bring. Out of Hades, fair lady gave chorus ring. Again, this idea that I'm in this place of not quite dead. Out of Hades, a fair lady washing up on the shore. This love interest washing up on the shore, coming. This idea of love reaching me in the land of the dead. Out of Hades, fair lady gave chorus ring, like produced song in my heart. Love at first sight, I imprinted. That imprint idea of from the movie, if you've seen it, Twilight, where Jacob the werewolf talks about the way they fall in love is by they imprint. They don't really choose. It's like it happens to them. Love at first sight happened to me. Love at first sight I imprinted, which incentivized angels. So speaking about me being like in this land of not quite dead, but dead, and talking about these beings that are heavenly, angelic, high, again contrasting this idea of low and high, heaven and hell, Hades and heights. Love at first sight I imprinted, which incentivized angels to occasion sound and soar of wings, like this song that was produced in my heart in the land of the not quite dead but dead, land of like the land of the living dead. And in that place where I was dead, in the land of the living dead, this idea of love produced song in my heart, which then the angels saw and like was a catalyst for them to like fly and sing, because like this idea of love being this like divine beautiful thing that would like inspire the heavens and the angels, and even would like make angelic beings look down and like, you know, peer in awe and wonder at the idea of human love. And then it shifts back to me speaking to the love interest. So taking the idea of incentivized angels to occasion sound and soar of wings, the soaring wings of angels that are flying. Then I say, beauty, if ever you bore of wing, as if it's like this castle on this like grand estate somewhere in like Europe. And it's like, you know how these big castles or mansions have like the west wing and the east wing. So like now we like fast forward and it's like me staring across this grandiose table in some banquet hall in this castle that we've grown old in. And like me in the current moment imagining us growing old together and thinking about like, I love you so much. I think about the day that possibly we wouldn't find ourselves as enthused by our love that we once, and we'd have to like recall back to our younger days of being in love and reignite the spark of love in our own hearts. And it's like speaking to her and saying, beauty, if ever you bore of wing, if you ever grow bored and tired of this life we build for ourselves, that we've built for ourselves, that we're going to build for, that's represented by this idea of this castle we live in. Beauty, if ever you bore of wing, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem, like self-esteem, like to lift us out of this lull we've fallen into, this monotony we've fallen into, but to give more esteem, like steam, like heated water, like to heat things back up, to bring fire back into the beauty, if ever you bore of wing, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem, like geysers, like, you know, these things in the ground where these hot springs are that produce water and steam. Beauty, if ever you bore of wing, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem, like geysers, no Pfizer, so we've now become like each other. I was this corpse, zombie, Frankenstein, werewolf, Dracula, dead mummy, Skellington, Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, thing in the land of the living dead, in this place of the dead. And now you've become like my corpse bride. Like geysers, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem. Like geysers, no Pfizer. This idea of what I won't bring to our situation is something that would turn us back into something living, but this idea of like, I can't escape from this thing of being the living dead. So I'll never introduce into our relationship anything that would then cure you of this condition that would make you fall in love with me and be my corpse bride. I'll bring the exact opposite. I'll bring the thing, the geyser, the steam, the reinvigoration, the spark back to our relationship that would bring us closer together. You would be my corpse bride that would only further transform you into my perfect partner. Beauty if ever you bore of wing, I'll re-renovate our grounds to give more esteem. Like geysers, no Pfizer, just zombie love stew, and I'll die here with you accordingly. That idea of like grow old and die together. We'll just continue to consume the thing that makes us more into the living dead and the land of the living dead, so that we can romantically, kind of this idea of almost like Inception, like they have to like stay asleep, they have to remain in this place, this like sunken place, this dream place, but that's also kind of like, it's like off kilter because it's not technically real. We'll just continue to consume, and zombie love stew is just like, again, it's like green eggs and ham. It's just like geysers, no Pfizer, just zombie love stew, this thing that will, as we consume, we become more of one another and more in love. Like geysers, no Pfizer, just zombie love stew, and I'll die here with you. Like we'll grow old and die together, but we'll become more of like these living dead things. And by virtue of that, becoming more of these living dead things, become more one, fall more in love. Like geysers, no Pfizer, just zombie love stew, and I'll die here with you accordingly. Yep, so that's episode number 2, poem Zombie Love Stew. If you stayed all the way to this point, thank you. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys for episode 3.